Hey Sapiens, welcome back to another Future Conversations with Nerks, as me and my co-host Mick Nerks, aka Drix, aka Kendrick, aka the Professor, whatever you know him as, discuss the adjacent possible, the what if, the prospects of a future for humanity. Yeah, we just talk about nerdy stuff and what tech could look like in the future. So, what are we discussing today? We actually, we were talking about earlier the narrative that artificial intelligence was going to kill us all. And we were talking about a little bit how that just doesn't make sense. But we're not going to visit that because Kendrick made a point that right now AI is the hot topic because OpenAI is doing what they're doing with AI, and ChatGPT and Google and Microsoft and Facebook and all these big players are just talking about AI nonstop. It's the hot thing. And in a couple of months or in a year or so, that fad is just going to fizzle out, just like what happened with cryptocurrency and blockchain, even though I do believe that crypto hasn't even started yet, but that is a conversation for another time. So instead of boring you all with the possibilities that every other channel on YouTube or TikTok is talking about right now, which is the artificial intelligence boom and how you can make millions of dollars off of it, which is not something we have an interest in, we're going to talk about what's beyond that. So today we're going to be talking about the convergence of other technologies, starting with quantum computing. So what is a quantum computer?
Or are we starting with quantum computing?
We are starting with quantum computing. What even is that? Why is it? From my understanding of what a quantum computer is, it's a computer that runs off qubits. That's all I know. I know it's faster than the traditional computer. And I know that it's extremely important for the next step in our, advancement for humanity. But why? Why?
Well, it's, oh God, geez. To understand a quantum computer can be very complicated, so I'll try to break it down into a simple analogy. When you have a classical computer, like the one you're watching this video on, for example, this classical computer runs on bits. And these bits exist or are represented as ones or zeros. So you can either be a one or you can be a zero. It's binary, just two factors, one or zero. When you introduce quantum computers run on what's known as qubits or quantum bits. And so these quantum bits have a special property known in quantum physics as superposition. So instead of having these classical bits that operate as either a one or a zero, these qubits or quantum bits stay in a state of superposition, and they can operate as a one, a zero, both, or neither, which allows them to create or run multiple different calculations at the same exact time, or large sets of calculations. I mean, they scale far higher in performance than a classical computer, where a classical computer might take, let's say, 10 years to complete some type of calculation. A quantum computer would take 10 minutes. So it can handle large sets of data, run large amounts of or large calculations in a fraction of the time of a classical computer.
Why is that important? What?
This can have an impact on every aspect of society when it comes to problem solving, running models on weather, actually having accurate models for weather prediction, global warming, and its impact on climate. We can use it on medicine, understanding how proteins fold and unfold, creating simulations around that. We can do simulations on other things, materials and different elements, impact on materials or things we are trying to construct. It just has a far larger scale and impact on everything that we are currently trying to do. It has impact in medication. I mean, logistics, security, automation, AI, robotics, space, understanding itself, understanding more about quantum physics and quantum mechanics. So there's a large application for quantum computing. I think individually taking a step back and trying to attach quantum computing to other forms of technology that exist allow you to peer deeper into the possibility of where these technologies can go.
What effect would quantum computing have in healthcare? Why would we need a quantum computer in healthcare? Where does that take us?
So, I mean, we can go a lot of places when it comes to healthcare. I take a step back and add an application to quantum computing that might make this sound a lot more interesting. I know we're not going to talk about the current state of AI as it exists today. Why? I mean, you can see it on the news every day, all day with ChatGPT and Bard. Cool. But what happens when you place a large language model or some type of intelligent algorithm on a quantum computer? You get something very, very close to, if not a super intelligence, actually something that goes far beyond super intelligence. You get an AI system that can process loads of information and create its own training models at a speed that we just can't comprehend. And so if I take a quantum artificial intelligence and then place that in the healthcare system, what do we come up with? We have a artificial intelligence system that is able to create different models and decode human DNA, understand fully how our gene expression works, truly turning our cells into a technology that can rewrite themselves or turn experience into a more malleable tool for us to work with, to stay healthy. We can compose genes like, I remember Jason Silva using the term, we can compose genes like Mozart and Beethoven composed symphonies. But that's only because AI can create these models where we can understand our genome and our protein and why our bodies work the way they do. And in knowing that, you can deconstruct viruses, you can deconstruct diseases, you can figure out what compounds are needed in order to cure diseases and viruses. I mean, you basically, with AI on the back of a quantum system in a short amount of time, can re-engineer the human body so that death is optional, disease is unnecessary, aging is a choice. It just becomes very interesting. We talk about the 7 hallmarks of aging, something that biologists are currently studying. I mean, what happens when you, one, understand those hallmarks of aging, but have an intelligence so vast and so powerful that it can reverse any damage to your cells? It can undo all these hallmarks so that you are just rejuvenated. What happens when you have Alzheimer's and you have a quantum intelligence that can understand, decode Alzheimer's as a disease? It can reverse that. It can completely deconstruct that disease and find what is necessary by using different models and different data sets to reverse the damage and eliminate the disease. So we talk about quantum systems, quantum computing with artificial intelligence in the healthcare system. You're talking about you're talking about humans being basically immortal. I mean, there's no other way to get around it. Disease is no longer an issue. Aging is no longer an issue. Health is really no longer an issue.
So what you're saying is, with the advent of quantum computing, that humanity has the option of dying or not.
Yeah, 100%.
Quantum computing has the ability to help humans escape death's grasp, which is extremely important. But not just that, cryptocurrency and the underlying technology behind it, blockchain, has been said that it's a way better system because with the blockchain, it takes a tremendous amount of power in order to hack it, which is why it's considered safe and secure. The power just does not exist, for example, on the planet Earth to currently hack the Bitcoin blockchain. It's too many transactions recorded in order to hack it. But with a quantum computer, Bitcoin is vulnerable, correct?
Yes, Bitcoin would be vulnerable.
You can easily hack the Bitcoin blockchain and make it extremely worthless.
I wouldn't say worthless, but you definitely could hack it, and it wouldn't be immutable anymore.
And that's just an idea of the power of quantum. Currently, with our current systems of computing, we do not have the energy for one machine to be able to hack the Bitcoin blockchain. But if you introduce quantum computing into that equation, then it can be done. And that's powerful. So we're talking about giving humans the ability of immortality, hacking an unhackable financial system now.
It's not about the energy. It's about the amount of processing that a classical computer can do. And so when you have quantum computers, the amount of calculations that they can perform are trivial to that of a classical computer. As you know, in order to build a blockchain and solve a block, it's a puzzle that you have to solve, a large calculation that you have to solve. Quantum computers can do that at a far higher scale that a classical computer can typically, or right now. But yeah, once again, healthcare system, quantum computer can just run models of our DNA and decode the entire thing and figure out through simulations, if you change these genes, this will it'll affect the body in this way. If you change these genes, it'll affect the body in this way. If you introduce this type of medicine, it'll affect the body in this type of way. And so not only do you have the human genome that's been decoded for so long, but now you have a roadmap and a...
Can't we do that with AI, though? With the next stage of AI, let's say it moves from a traditional LLM model, like a large language model, to a more specific type of model in healthcare. Can't we devise a way to cure HIV or...
You can. You run into the issue of time. How many calculations, what type of training models does the AI have to go through to understand different parts of the molecular biology needed in order to find a cure for these things?
So we're already trying to solve those problems. AI is going to help, but you're saying quantum will take that a whole nother step forward.
It just exponentiates an exponential growth curve already. We're already on the exponential growth curve with how AI is able to advance, train itself, create its own models for its own evolution. So by adding quantum systems into that, you go from something being able to run computations at a factor of maybe, I'm using this as an example, 2x to something that can run calculations at a factor
Can't
of
this all go wrong?
100x.
Why can't this all go wrong?
Everything can go wrong. Yeah, somebody can use a quantum computer system to create a virus that's so deadly that it can kill the entire human race in less than a year. 100%. Yes, we can do that. Will we do that? Probably not.
Should there be any regulations?
Who's going to regulate it? Who's going to regulate it? Doesn't make sense in the world we live in today. I mean, this is also infuriating. People talking about this needs to be regulated. This needs to be regulated. I think we need to wake up and understand that we live in a globalized society, which comes with the... Instead of an if-then statement, it comes with a if you don't, they will statement. So, what are you going to regulate? First of all, the United States of America's policies on regulation are extremely slow. The senators, representatives, our government does not have the speed capable to keep up with the new technologies that come out. So oftentimes the private industry is able to just build whatever they want and set their own standards or limitations or rules on whatever they build. You can see that happening now with AI. All they can do is take Sam Altman up there and question him, but they have no understanding of what he's actually doing. So how are we going to talk about regulation? What are we going to regulate with a quantum computer? What are we going to say that we can and cannot do? Because the government doesn't understand it by itself. And if you decide to regulate some aspect of quantum computing, I guarantee you there is another country that won't. And when we live in the capital of capitalism, which is the United States of America on this planet, they are not going to hamstring themselves to a business idea that can net gain their far more money and increase the GDP of this country, while another country runs away with advancements in a technology that we could be the leader in, especially with the high military industrial complex that we have in this country.
But say we are able to answer the questions of solving immortality and curing some of these diseases, what's the risk of humanity not dying?
What do you mean?
Like,
we're not going to die anyway.
The population growth on planet Earth, is going to be ridiculous. If no one dies and everyone gets born, and there's limited resources.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it for a minute. Like, I understand this question, but I understand the question, and it's a great question to pose, but we act like this is a vacuum. And this is the dangers with people thinking about technology. You have to open yourself up. Technology exists as a tree, and it starts at the root, which one could say was when humans began to take their stone tools and build civilization to the point where we are at today. Maybe that was the trunk. And as society or humanity begin to continue to grow and create their own tools and technologies, you start sprouting off into different branches and leaves and et cetera. With this sprouting, there's also interconnectedness. There's a collaboration of different branches and twigs, which would be a collaboration of different technologies. So when you start talking about an overpopulation because of healthcare and humans not dying, one, you have to factor the possibility that humans will probably stop having kids.
I don't think that's a reasonable probability.
Why?
Because that is an expression of human purpose.
But what if your children no longer have to be biological but can be synthetic? And that is another integration of technology that you have to think about.
You're still creating some type of life that...
synthetic life that doesn't have to use the same amount of resources that a normal child would have to use.
Fair point.
What about space exploration? International Space Station, sending people off planet.
These are the solutions that I'm asking you about. Yeah. We're talking about introducing AI itself right now is crazy. Like, people in mainstream media are just talking about jobs being taken, AI making our kids dumber because it's writing their papers, even though I don't see that correlation. And AI just being this big baddie. And now you're talking about, well, if you thought AI was bad, wait till you get a load of this quantum computer, which is going to be able to exponentially make AI way better and make other technologies way better. So I'm saying if we're introducing this and then immortality becomes a thing because quantum computing enhances AI, and we have all these people, what are the solutions? Why is it not risky? Why should we continue to develop these things? Why shouldn't we just take a step back and say, you know what, let's slow our roll and try and...
And to my point, and I'll answer your first question, but to my point, there is no slowing this down.
The genie's out of the bottle?
The genie's out of the bottle. And Ray Kurzweil said this. The director of engineering at Google, probably the father of futurism, to be quite honest. His book, he is the closest thing to a what do you call those people with the crystal ball?
Prophet, fortune teller
of technology that we probably will ever see. But we're on the exponential curve, baby. There ain't no coming back.
Exponential curve of what?
Of growing and rapidly accelerating technologies.
Is this the end of Homo sapiens?
This is not. Yes, to a degree, this is the end of Homo sapiens. We are at a tipping point where we are changing our own evolution. Mm-hmm. You have to realize that we are Homo sapiens, but we become a different species. And this has nothing to do really with, well, it does have something to do with AI because it's going to help us get there. But we become a different species species when we give ourselves the power to evolve our own evolvability. When we start scripting and rewriting our genes with our own purpose and our own demand at our own time, then we become a species that can rewrite whatever species we'd like to be. And so we are on the tipping point of Homo sapiens going extinct because we'll become Homo something else. Magneto called them Homo superior in X-Men, one of the X-Men movies. We are on the tipping point of becoming a different civilization. But back to the original question you had, which was explaining how quantum computing or artificial intelligence is going to create this new world where we don't get sick, we don't age, and we don't die. How are we not living in a world that's overpopulated?
And resources diminished. Yeah.
To think in this dimension, to think this narrowly about the future, you have to open your mind and branch out, take a step back, and realize the other impacts that these technologies will have on other industries. Let's talk about farming. Let's talk about artificial meats, artificial foods in general.
People are not going to eat genetically modified foods.
One person would argue in the past that perhaps people would not eat Twinkies.
I don't know who would argue that.
It's a constructed food. It is not from livestock. It is not from vegetation. So what is this now? What is this new obsession with not eating artificial foods? We've been eating artificial foods for the last 100 years.
I feel like there's more of an awareness and a romanticism of organic and natural.
But what happens when you can literally do a test on an artificial food, artificial meat, and it has superior health benefits than one that you would kill, cut open, clean, package, and distribute? When the lab-grown meat is packed with far more proteins, far more healthy proteins, far less fats that add to cholesterol that can end up harming you in the long run. Like, when you start realizing that we are re-scripting everything that we do in society, including the foods we eat, so that it benefits us, I just don't see the argument. And I don't think humans will see the argument either.
I think people are slow. I think that when you have someone saying it's not organic, it was made in a laboratory and it could give me cancer. And that's a real argument that I've heard. Like, I've heard someone say they don't eat corn because they found out corn was genetically modified. Yeah. And if it's not natural and if it doesn't come from Gaia, Mother Earth.
But come on,
even with all the health benefits that you claim that genetic modified food will have, I would eat. I'd eat because it'll be less expensive. It'll be more affordable and more nutritious for you than what's currently organic and grows out of the ground instead of a lab. But there are people that will fearmonger and say, hey, that's not of Earth.
I can't.
That's not of God, and we shouldn't eat it.
This is. I'm sorry. This is an uneducated position to hold. Half the fruits we eat and vegetables we eat are not organic. We manipulated their genome in order to produce the flavorful type of food that they are. The animals that exist on this planet today are a result of some form of evolution. Yeah. And some types, in some cases, some form of selective breeding. That is not natural.
But you're saying lab-grown meat.
Yes. What is lab-grown meat? You're taking a cell, culturing a cell, a specific type of cell, where you also still have the opportunity to turn it into a very nutritious, healthy type of cell by modifying its genome, and culturing it and letting it grow so that it fits the form of some type of protein or food that already exists in the market. Like, we're not talking about me putting a cauldron and somewhere and adding a bat's wing and a chicken's toenail. Like, this is just a simple cell being cultured to grow into a large form of produce, meat, livestock, whatever you can imagine.
I just know there'll be pushback.
And there can be pushback, but my point to this pushback is that it's happening too fast. It's happening too fast. You can push back as much as you want, and that level of Homo sapien will die off.
I agree with that. I do.
But to initially answer your question, overpopulation, I do not think we will be having children to the degree that we are having children now, especially biologically.
In 20 years, 50 years?
I would say between 50 and 100. 50 years from now, we're in 2070. The singularity is posed to happen by 2040. So that's 30 additional years. Right now, artificial intelligence is growing at a rapid rate, creating its own, like they're able to rewrite its own understanding. They're able to create training models off its last iteration. And then at some point we are within the next 15 years, I would assume, Ray Kurzweil assumes, we're going to get to some level of general intelligence.
And that's when people get rooted out of their jobs and out of their homes. And
but no, that might not also be the case. Like currently we have
How do we prepare for that?
Currently we have 5 companies working on some type of computer brain interface.
But how do you prepare for your unprepared society and your unprepared government to help people adjust to a world that is mostly ran by general AI?
You know, humans are probably the most adaptable species on this planet,
which is why they've currently won.
The only thing we are slow to, it seems like we are slow to adjust to, is social change. That's it. But other levels of change, we just learn to adapt. And so I don't think this technological advancement, this exponential growth that we are seeing leading us straight into the singularity is going to be something that we just fight till the end. I think some people will fight it. Cool. There's some people fighting the technology we have today.
Yeah.
There's some people who refuse to use a cell phone. Cool. Understand.
That's true, Christopher
But
Nolan.
I think the large majority of people, how many of us oppose the cell phone? And then how many of us thought it was a cool technology?
There's still people.
How many? Well, but how many? How many people oppose the personal computer? How many people oppose the car? How many people oppose airplanes? Like, there's a large group of the majority, there's a large group of the population that see these technologies and say, you know, I find that fascinating and interesting, and I'm going to try it. And then when you try it, you realize it makes your life more productive, more efficient, and saves you time.
It adds convenience,
Yes.
which is the number one seller to humans. If you can make something more convenient and easy for a human, they're going to buy it.
Yeah.
There are those people that, and I keep saying this because there's an argument to be made that technology isn't just seen as this wonderful thing across the world. There's people I know who have cell phones in their pocket, yet they complain about the radiation that could potentially be giving them cancer. And there's just what do you call them? Luddites? Those people that just naturally don't want to see the technology evolve. You talked about us not having biological kids at the same rate, but you also said something about moving humanity off planet. What does that look like? Interplanetary species? Can humans survive that? Can humans do that? Where would they go, and how would the economy function?
And so this is that question. Like that's the thought experiment, isn't it? That's the thing you try to figure out. We send people into space. We send people onto international space stations.
Yeah.
But can we live there?
What was it? Someone said that the last time we went to the moon in 1969. 1969 was the last time. No, because the Russians tried to go out and they didn't make it. So the last time that all humans were even on Earth was around the 1969. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting. That's a very interesting thought. Last time every single human being as a species was on the planet collectively was around 1969, 1968, 1969.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. That's crazy.
We've extended past our home world already. We have people currently on the International Space Station doing experiments and testing things. So international space stations, I mean, these are part of what I think come from AI running models and coming up with solutions to how to build a population in space, in the vacuum of space, running models with quantum computing, having that artificial meat and vegetation that you can grow instead of having to take livestock with you. Healthcare that allow you to de-age or stay your same age and allow you to remain young. Nano sciences, advancements in nanosciences and building new nano materials from these nanosciences that allow you to explore the cosmos outside of the International Space Station without any harmful impact to your body, or things that you can take with you in the International Space Station as you and this new frontier or team of humans go out and explore the cosmos together, and probably a group of 50, then 100, and then maybe a couple of thousands, and leave the solar system.
That's a new enterprise.
It is.
Yeah.
And as I think Jason Silva so brilliantly says, I think humans are getting to a point where we will extend ourselves out into the universe to extend and expand our intelligence into the universe and ultimately wake the universe up. We will start looking different. We will start doing different things. What we value today, we will no longer value in the future. Some things that we value today, we will.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we are changing. The world is getting different. We are living in the middle of it. Those who said that artificial intelligence could never eclipse the intelligence of a human being have mud on their face today. And I've listened to a couple of them say that they were absolutely wrong. And I'm not just talking about people in different industries. I'm talking about people who study AI on a regular basis. They have openly come out and said they had never thought that an artificial intelligence would be this smart. I think one was on one was being interviewed by Lex Friedman. I forgot his name. I forgot his name. But you're seeing this daily. So this idea that we are not on this new exponential growth curve where technology is just about to grow so quickly.
And I get that. I guess the what I'm trying to do is present the other side of the argument that, you know, with the emergence of quantum computing and AI and that convergence, or quantum computing and bioengineering or nanotechnology, it's, are we ready? Are we prepared? How do we solve for the drawbacks of overpopulation or the drawbacks of
I mean, there are no real drawbacks that I don't think we won't solve with
the technology we use,
with the technologies that we're going to create. Once again, like, we'll start being an extraterrestrial species. We'll start reducing the amount of biological children that we have. Robots. I mean, let's talk about when we start impregnating intelligence into our machines, into actual physical robots. What happens when those are quantum intelligences in robots with the same reaction speeds, if not faster than humans, being able to recognize things and see things in the world and be able to react to it at a higher level than we can. I mean, I don't know. There's so many options. There's so many tree branches, as I said earlier, that are going to continue to sprout and change the world that we live in our species. And we're in the middle of it. I guarantee you that by 2100,
we won't be alive to see it.
You won't be. Sadly. I'm sorry. That's how you feel. You won't be. I was born in the 90s. So by 2100, I'll only be 100 and technically by 2100, I will only be 108.
I'll only be
108.
You'll be a Centaurian.
Yeah, but and most people probably will be. But you will not. You just won't recognize the planet or society.
Yeah.
Like when you were a kid. The days of what the world looked like when you were a kid and what it will look like at that time will be vastly different. Vastly. I mean, look, we have Wake Forest University at the leading edge of 3D printed cells. I mean, 3D printed organs. 3D printed organs that you can stick in a human who's having some type of organ failure or organ damage.
Not FDA approved. Our government is
currently not. We have people working on. We have multiple companies working on vaccines for HIV.
Yeah,
easily.
mRNA vaccines.
mRNA vaccines.
The same type of vaccines that were used to help prevent COVID symptoms.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many private industries working on new novel technologies that are going to change how we live. It's a different world. It's a different world. It's a different place that we live today. And so let's talk about the solutions, of course. Let's talk about the possibilities. But this fear mongering can't have anything to do with it. There is no room to be afraid. There is no room to regulate. Well, there's room to regulate, but there's no room to say, let's pause for a minute to regulate. We're going to have to move on the fly. You're going to have to move while you go. It's just moving too fast. Right now, while everybody's eyes are on artificial intelligence, like we said before, nobody's looking at quantum computing. Nobody's thinking about the possibilities and saying, hey, let's try to draft something right now. Google got something nasty in their basement. They just hit quantum supremacy again. I forgot how many qubits they added.
They didn't hit quantum supremacy. They're close to quantum supremacy, but they didn't hit it.
I'm sorry. You're right. They're closer to quantum supremacy, but they've increased the amount of qubits that they have on their quantum computer, getting ever closer to quantum supremacy.
And it's nowhere close to being, even their quantum computer is so massive, it's not even close to being a personal, like a consumer facing computer.
But what does that mean?
I'm just saying, like, we're getting, because we've seen this story before.
Yes,
we're getting close to quantum supremacy for actual quantum computer, but it's not even close to being ready for consumers' hands. And if that happens, if it gets in the hands of consumers, what does that look like for our everyday lives? What does that look like for?
I mean, that's what they're for. Like, artificial intelligence right now is re-scripting its own code so that it can become smarter and better and faster and more efficient. Quantum computing can allow us to manhandle and manipulate the very fabric of reality, the atoms and the molecules.
What's the point? What's the human's role at that point in the world? A lot of people say they think. It's funny, actually. A lot of millennials that I've talked to have said that they think the world is going to look like WALL-E in the future. Like, humans are just fat and don't really have any purpose. What is the purpose of a human being when you have general intelligence and quantum computing? Like, what do we do? What becomes our purpose? Maybe set for exploring the cosmos, which we really don't even have to do because our machines are immortal.
I personally believe there's a convergence between intelligence and man. So maybe you say, what is the point? I say humans have been giving their life meaning in the last, I don't know, however long we've been alive. We give ourselves meaning. We give our life meaning. I think we are going to meld or mesh our technologies inside of us. Humans will become the AI we'll merge our AIs with ourselves through CPIs, computer brain interfaces. We will be able to enhance our cognition, maybe with some level of quantum cloud computing. Who knows? But we give our life purpose, whatever we want to do, and whatever we want to do to enjoy our lives. We don't have to do it as a collective. You can still do it as an individual.
But it's up to us. Do though
everything?
Like, outside of discovery, I feel like the only thing left in terms of experience, if we have the ability to be these immortal beings that have this infinite or collective intelligence that we can access in nanoseconds, the only thing left to really experience is the ability to explore the cosmos and to learn.
That's not true.
What is there to do on this planet?
You have new technologies and new tools that allow you to do new things that you've never done before. So your new job could just be pushing that technology forward. You do it in a far shorter time span, but you will continue pushing the edges and pushing the limits of physics and reality.
Here on Earth.
on Earth and wherever you'd like to.
Do you think more people in 25 years would elect to be an interplanetary species, or do you think more people would want to remain on their birth rock?
It depends. How does your brain change when, one, you have some type of CPI in it, computer
CBI.
I'm sorry, I just said CBI. When you have some type of CBI in it, and then two, how does your brain change when you know you can't die?
Some would argue that if you know you can't die, it stops exponential progress because you feel like you have more time. It's not a sense of urgency.
Neil deGrasse Tyson made that argument. I disagree. I think his argument was you're not motivated because death motivates you because you realize time is limited. I don't think that will necessarily apply. I think humans are just as motivated by their curiosities as they are by the idea that time is limited. So we are curious. We're a very curious species. That's why we explore. We don't explore because we know we're going to die. We explore because we want to know what's on the other side of that rock. And so I think with more time, we just know we have the opportunity to explore more and scratch all of our curiosities instead of just try to focus on one thing for our measly 70 years. Yeah.
I just the idea of staying here and not wanting to. I think there's something to what you say about the desire to explore, especially as a human being, being able to go out and see new things and be augmented and push the boundaries of what we know as reality. I think that's a thing. I do agree. Like, there's an excitement to that. It's weird. It's weird to think about, to release the constraints of what life is today, to possibly imagine that I'll be 70 something years old, piloting ships out in the cosmos, potentially growing new families or experiencing a whole completely different lifetime within a lifetime. That's so radically strange. That's so weird. You live long enough to see your great-grandchildren have kids and have populated a different sector of the cosmos that you'll never be able to visit because we have yet to figure out how to bend space and time. Like, it's so fun. It's weird to think about those things. Would you jump in a black hole to see what was on the other end?
Depends on what I was.
What you were.
If I was part of some Hive-Mind, probably for the good of the collective.
Explain that. What does that mean? If you were a part of a Hive-Mind, you would jump in a black hole.
Or if I knew like it wouldn't end my consciousness, my ability to perceive the world around me, then I would. If I knew that I was digitally immortal, perhaps, yeah, maybe I would. But if I was part of a hive mind where my collective experiences were connected to other people's collective experiences, then yeah, I think if I knew that I could gather data and information about what was on the other end of a black hole and transmit that over to the collective and still be able to express my consciousness throughout the universe. If the body I was inhabiting got destroyed, then yeah, I would do it.
You bring up a very interesting point that I haven't thought about before, which is death a death? Like, if you're part of a collective and maybe you've divided your consciousness into 3 different beings and you can't really die, if one of those things dies, is that death? Is it a crime to kill yourself if you're one of three? Like if you split your mind into three different collectives, into three different entities, but you all experience and are like of one mind. Could I kill one of you and it not be death?
To be immortal is to not be able to die. So, I mean, what do you mean by kill? How do you kill an immortal?
To end, I think today we measure death through the lack of brain activity legally. So if there's three of you and one goes into a black hole, is that are you committing suicide, or is that just what is, if you lose a being that has an extended form of your consciousness, what is that? Is it no longer death?
If I cut off a finger, am I dead?
No.
I think the same principle applies. This houses some of my consciousness I can experience through my finger. If I cut it off, there's still a larger part of me that can experience things.
Very interesting.
So
that's very interesting.
But wherever the collective of my consciousness is,
should all three of the entities that house your consciousness be eradicated, that then becomes death.
But so the goal of what I would imagine a transhumanist like myself would be is to house my consciousness in a place where it is not at risk of being deleted.
Horcrux.
So in some type of cloud system.
Okay.
Where I can spread my will into multiple bodies, Hive-Mind possibly, or just multiple bodies, synthetic, robotic, maybe, cybernetic, and enact my will through all three at the same time. So if one gets destroyed, the collective consciousness is still
there.
No different from me losing a finger.
It's a very strange, it's new and it's different. It's a strange concept. Listen, yeah. People would be able to send their consciousness to the cloud.
Yeah.
And if they needed new bodies, they could go through some manufacturer to create some synthetic new body that they could pay 15,000 Ethereum for.
I mean,
or
the goal is you 3D print your own body at home.
We're a ways away from that, but it's wild. It's wild. That's where I'm at. It's just wild to think about the difference. The difference. There'll be no more funerals. Will there even be? Well, I guess there will be birthdays. I guess maybe. Do you even care? Once you get to 200, do you even care about celebrating your birthday?
I think the older you get, the less you care about your birthday. I think once you realize you don't die, then you really don't care about your birthday. When you're stuck in the age of 35, 36, what's a birthday? What is it? I think the smarter human beings become, you realize that your biological age is more important than your chronological age anyway. Yeah. So we used our chronological age because we didn't have the concept of biological age. Now there are human beings who measure their biological age. I forgot the guy's name. I was watching his stuff. Brian Johnson, I believe.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't remember his name. I know who you're talking about.
But he constantly keeps himself in a state of, I think, 30. He was one of the founders of PayPal and sold his company and with Elon and used most of his fortune to stay young. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if he celebrates his birthdays, but it seems quite trivial to celebrate your birthdays when you just don't get older. And then once again, you become a spacefaring species. Your birthday is measured, your chronological birthday is measured by how many rotations you take around the sun when you're no longer in the solar system.
True.
I mean, you don't know how many.
Gravity, the time is different.
Yeah.
It becomes different. That's, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we're like in the middle of like I want everybody to, well, I don't want everybody to understand, but I think it's cool to understand that we are in the middle of such a large technological change to like society and who we are as a species. Be prepared for like drastic change. I'm talking about quick change consistently. Like people's eyeballs are glued. It also hurts that people can't focus on multiple things at one time. People's eyeballs right now are glued at AI. They've forgotten about crypto until this bull run hits again in December of 2024. They've forgotten about.
Yeah, they have. You're right.
Forgotten about virtual reality, not understanding that it's not about the technology, it's about the application for the technology that we haven't received yet. Like they're forgotten about so many different things.
Both. I think it's the hardware and the software haven't met. We haven't gotten both those things completely right yet.
It's hard for me to say that the hardware isn't correct.
Well, people, it's not convenient. It's not natural for some people. We haven't solved the ability to make it a.
For virtual reality, I think that's a cop out. I think there's a cop out for the critics who don't understand.
That's not a cop out for the critics. That's actual experience. When the experience makes someone uncomfortable, and it's not.
When's the last time somebody? I have not heard anybody complain with a MetaQuest 2.
I have
that it makes them dizzy and uncomfortable.
At my job, they bought us all, my entire engineering team and the product people, MetaQuest 2.
Yeah,
and there's some people who cannot use it because even when we started and they went in to play Among Us or one of whatever game we were playing, it made them dizzy and nauseous.
I've passed out about 5 to my team, and I keep asking how they feel, and everybody is like, "Oh no, I love it. It's great." But
when we talk about sample size, there's just people not within your group that experience that and probably haven't used it for longer than an hour, whereas our team times are about an hour long. And the sample size is different. I'm just getting the people who are having that problem. So I don't think the technology has caught up. And maybe Apple's will be the one to make that visual experience not as.
Well, I mean, the issue is the latency, isn't it?
But it's still the hardware. There's a hardware issue with. It's not just the latency of you being multiplayer. It's the hardware and your vision. So even if you were doing a single player campaign or something, is the frame rate right?
Yeah, the latency.
It's still making people sick.
Yeah. So like if latency is the issue and we're consistently getting better frame rates so that there's not as much of a delay, and when you move your hand past, it's not like a 1 second delay before your hand actually goes past. Like if we can get it as clean as possible, then I think a lot of that motion sickness goes away.
But it's still a problem. What I'm saying when you said is you don't think it's you think it's an application thing. I think it's both the software and the hardware that still have a ways to go before it can become mainstream.
Oh, you keep using these long time frames.
No, I'm saying I think they have a ways to go, and that could be 2 years, that could be 3 years from now, but it's not there yet, and I don't think it'll be there by the end of the year.
No, but I don't consider a long amount of time 3 years. Maybe.
What my question to you, and I'm kind of changing the subject. In 15 years, what happens to race relations?
That depends on what we build.
Because from what I think there'll be a new point, something to point at where society or social commentary won't be about race. I think if we are building robots, I think there's going to be a shift in conversation, the HomoSapiens versus the robots, and robots and rights and ethics and civil rights for machines and who owns them. And if I want to marry my robot and then I don't love my robot anymore, but I don't want it to love someone else, it's still my property because I bought it. So it's going to be stuck with me. Like because it's my property. I think I don't want to say that race relations will disappear. in terms of race being an issue and us thinking more so about the different races, but I think we'll have a new thing to focus on, and it won't be blacks versus whites versus Asians versus Latinos versus whoever. It'll be humans versus robots. But what is your take on race relations?
I don't think we'll have an issue with robots.
You don't?
No, I think Andrew Yang neatly described in his book that scarcity of resources is what causes or what contributes to a lot of hate toward a certain group of people or toward anyone. I think when you feel like you have your neck squeezed and your group of people are running out of resources, that's when you start to lash out and discriminate to protect your tribe. I think with the advancements that we're going to have and the abundance of resources that we'll be able to create for everyone, you will see less of a race-centric society. I think the United States of America is an example of it going like, I think the United States of America is somewhat of an example of this. We live in the most diverse country on the planet. And though media will lead you to believe that there's, African Americans are attacking Asians because of COVID. Oh, white people still hate people of color and are still racist and discriminating. I don't find that to be the truth in the majority. I think in the majority you see, due to integration of different people and different communities, you get to see a white kid growing up with a black kid and calling him his brother. You get to see interracial marriage. You get to see a lot of this. And though they recognize that the color is different, the culture is the same.
Yeah.
And so I think you have moments of hate, but I think most of the time these moments of hate come from people who are either afraid or feel like some resource that they value is at risk. And so they lash out because they are trying to protect that resource.
You don't believe in race.
I do not.
You don't believe race. You identify race as a social construct. And
yeah.
Would you say, and this is a major claim, but would you say that a low a person that doesn't have a very high capacity to think and solve problems and identify solutions or have critical thinking, has a person that doesn't have very high critical thinking skills, do you think that they are the people that really like identify a person based on their race as opposed to identifying based on the cultural similarities between a group of people? Like, what I'm really trying to say, if I don't sugarcoat it, is people who see race, are they low IQ, more low IQ than those that identify that it's not a difference of race but culture, because no race is a monolith of individuals?
No, they're not low IQ. So that's what society that's society. Society has this narrative that there is such thing as race because the United States of America had a cultural, created a race narrative.
Well, it wasn't just the United States. But
the United States of America, in this country, we created a race narrative between slaves and people who were not.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say white versus black because there were also other people of color who were slaves.
Oh, they were. Yeah.
And so that has just been a narration in this country for a long amount of time. And it just exists today. You go to the news, you hear about race. You presidential debate, they talk about race. Like, it's just, it exists. And when you grow up, you hear it, and that's what you put into your mind.
But it's the wrong focus point on the problem.
I mean, I agree. I don't disagree with that.
That was a question. I'm sorry. That was a question.
Yeah, no, that's not the real issue. Like when you look at science, when you listen to the scientists, like for example, Richard Dawkins, for example, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
I grew up in college. When I went to college, I started listening to the scientists, and race is not some real construct. It's a social construct that we created. But the difference between myself and my best friend, who is white, is no more than the difference between me being 5'10" and my other African American friend who's 5'12". The difference between me and my
5'12", you mean?
I'm sorry, 6 feet. I'm sorry. I'm Jesus. My genome expresses more melanin in my skin, which makes it a darker pigmentation than my best friend who is white.
I understand that.
Well, getting to a point, and that's no different. Like that expression is no different from somebody who is also African American, person of color, who is 6 feet tall. My gene has a different expression of bone height. So that's not important. I have less genetic differences with a white person in Europe than I do with someone in Africa. There is more genetic diversity between people on the continent of Africa than there is between me and the guy who lives across from us. There it is proven fact. There is more genetic diversity between me and someone in Africa. There's more genetic diversity amongst people who live in Africa than there is between me and my neighbors. And so when you look at race, it's this giant social construct. It does not make sense. What does make sense is culture. And typically,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
And typically people who look like each other either are from the same cultural background. Mm-hmm. Not always the case. But if you have a bunch of Italian Americans who came from Italy, they probably have the same culture.
Yeah.
Italian Americans used to be thought of a different race than white people. Yes. When Italian Americans first came to New York, they were thought of to be a different race. Those Italians taking over New York, causing it to be a dangerous city. Seriously, those were the articles. Those were the no different from people from Asia. You see a Filipino and a Chinese person, and somebody from America might think they're the same culture, from the same culture, from the same place. But they could be culturally different. I think a lot of African Americans have a lot in common with Japanese Americans culturally. So I think I'm sorry, to get back to your original
stretch. I said, I think that's a stretch.
You do think that's a stretch?
Yes.
I mean, I think in the rising of anime popularity in the United States of America, and I know a lot of my friends love manga and anime. I think there's a lot of similarities in like culture because you respect it. Not complete, like African Americans aren't walking around in a kimono, but like in terms of like understanding the values of traditional Japan, I know a lot of African Americans who speak a little bit of Japanese because they watch sub anime. They can name streets in Japan and Tokyo because of the anime. Like they understand I forgot what that phrase is called, but like the dynamics between
Nani.
Like what? That means what? Yeah. I understand the dynamics between some cultural memes in Japan because they watch anime. So I think there's some, by that I mean, there's some similarities in that culture that African Americans can also identify with.
So getting back to my question though, which was like how, I guess the question was, how does the technology that we're coming into play a role in race relations?
I can't predict the impact technology will have on race. I do think if we are more intelligent species because we are using AI to enhance our intellect, knowledge, and I'll say, I think less people will care about race or the concept that, hey, that person is a different color, so that person is a different race. Like that will fall out the window. I think more people will see that culture is different, ethnicity is different, but race is not.
Human versus transhumanists. Those who are biological against those who are synthetic.
The only issue I see with that is that it, like, if you're a human, if you decide not to become transhuman, like, that's your choice.
Yeah.
So, like, I can't imagine humans would just... I'll say this. I can't imagine transhumanists would have an issue with humans.
I can't imagine. Well, I could see, actually, the Magneto effect.
I can't see it. Humans wouldn't be a threat to a transhumanist.
No, I mean just you're less than. Like the superiority complex of merging with machines.
I don't think
and being able to think quicker, have more access to information.
But why would you care about a human?
I'm saying there would be a superiority complex amongst those that are transhumanists as opposed to those that wanted to remain biological.
You think the transhumanists would just innately have a superiority complex? I don't think so.
When you're that much more advanced, when it takes a human 10 seconds to answer something that you can in a second.
I don't think it gives you this like superiority complex. I think when I see this is going to get me canceled. I think if I see somebody with Down syndrome, I don't think I'm better than them. Mm-hmm. I try to look for ways that I might be able to assist them.
That's you, though.
I'm talking from my own experience, though.
I mean, yeah, that's you. But like, even Jeff Bezos said that one of the most valuable things that his stepfather, I think it was his stepfather, his grandfather told him was something along the lines of, you can be as smart as you want to be, but you can be as smart as you can, but just don't be an asshole, or something along the lines of just telling him like it's not okay to be an asshole. And that stuck with him because he realized that he could go down that path of being an asshole, even though he was really, really smart. And I think some people are blinded by that you can get this advantage over normal people, and you can have a 4.0 GPA or like the highest GPA, and you just think you're better than everyone else because you are smarter. And I think that those transhumanists could not necessarily would be like, look at that mudblood, or look at that human over there, but there would just be this, I am better because I am augmented. Like, I've paid to be better than what I was when I was just a biological man or woman.
You might feel better than what you used to be, but once again, like, it depends on what type of transhumanist you are. If I start cutting off my limbs and replacing them with cybernetic body parts, somebody might feel bad for me that I would elect to do that. I would love who the new version of me was, because I know I'd have superior strength, superior speed, superior reaction. Yep. But I wouldn't look at a human and be like, ugh, they still have their flesh. They're nasty. I'm better than them. Like, I got a tattoo. Like, it's the equivalent.
I don't know. That's like, because
you don't get, like, I'm not going to get
transhumanists in sports. Like, if they're going to wean regular athletes out.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to see, like...
I think they'll create their own sports. Like, I think they'll create sports that humans can't be a part of because they're frail and would get crushed.
I'm not going to say anything to that effect because I'm going to get canceled. But I do believe that I do think that mentally transhumanists might feel a little bit better than regular human beings.
Why would they?
Because they are. But anyway, I think that's it. I think we should end the podcast here. Yeah. we're almost at time. So yeah, we're going to end the podcast here. We'll pick up on this conversation in another episode. But thanks for tuning in, Sapiens. We'll see you next time in future conversations with Nerks. Have a great one. Bye.